Good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for July the 31st. Today, of course, being last day of July, is our last read for July, and we're going to be in Psalm 93 this morning. The 93rd Psalm has been given the title in my Bible, God's Eternal Reign. It does not have a superscription in our Old Testaments, but the Greek translation does attribute this to as being a psalm for the day before the Sabbath. So I guess Friday. It's be a Friday psalm, and it's also attributed to David. So take that for what it is worth. One of the things we're going to note here in Psalm 93 is the focus on Yahweh as King. And in the very first line, the first two words are Yahweh reigns. And this can also be found in Psalm 95. There's also, this also mentioned this is mentioned in Psalm 96, verse 10. It's also mentioned verse 1 of Psalm 97 and also Psalm 99. And all of these Psalms, except for 94, have a kingly focus whenever it comes to Yahweh. So this would fit in the category of being a kingship psalm and also a praise psalm for God's great kingship. And it makes sense that this would be the focus of these psalms, because if we go back to Psalm 89, we are reminded at the end of that particular book that the question from the psalmist is, will you hide forever? Will your anger keep burning like fire? Yahweh, where are your former acts of your faithful love that you swore to David in your faithfulness? So it's almost as if the psalmist is asking the question, is Yahweh still reigning? Is he still king over his people? And these psalms, and really all these psalms, it looks like, in this fourth book, which focus so much on Yahweh and different characteristics of his character and of his power and of his might and majesty and his position as king over Israel, they seem to be answering that question. So note especially again today in Psalm 93, and then next week in the Psalms we look at, Psalms 95, 96, 97, and then 98 and 99, all of these focus on Yahweh as king, very much answering that question. Yes, Yahweh still reigns, and we're going to see some various characteristics of his reigning here within this psalm. So let me get the text up on the screen. We'll read along together. This short little psalm today, short but still just as powerful as ever, looking at Yahweh as king. We read, as I mentioned earlier, verse number 1, Yahweh reigns. He is robed in majesty. Yahweh is robed, enveloped in strength. The world is firmly established. It cannot be shaken. Your throne has been established from the beginning. You are from eternity. The floods have lifted up, Yahweh. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their pounding waves, greater than the roar of a huge torrent, the mighty breakers of the sea. Yahweh on high is majestic. Yahweh, your testimonies are completely reliable. Holiness adorns your house for all the days to come. Psalm number 93. Again, the focus here on praising Yahweh for his position as king over Israel. And we see, as we think about a king, one of the things that often distinguishes a king from others are his arraignments, or the clothing that he wears. Think about the story of, let's see, it's Ahab and I cannot remember the other king, but remember they entered into an alliance together when they should not have, and Ahab told him to wear his royal clothes, and then Ahab put on some normal clothes, and that way he's not targeted during the heat of battle. So again, the clothing of the king often signifies that this is the king, this is somebody special. Well, what is the clothing of Yahweh? Well, it is his strength. You could say it is the creation, that the world is firmly established, it cannot be shaken, that the creation of the world and the strength and the power and the might that went into that, and in the fact that the world cannot be shaken, that it is established and not going anywhere outside of his control, is a sign of his majesty and his royalty. Whenever we think about creation, we think about the majesty of Yahweh's arraignment and of his clothing. Then concerning his throne, your throne has been established from the beginning. You are from eternity. Remember, the throne of the king represents authority It represents rule. And what we are told in the fact that it has been established from the beginning and that he is from eternity is that God's rule is timeless. It is timeless. It has always been, and it always will be. So his strength is seen in the creation. His strength, or his rule is timeless in nature and eternal. The third thing we see in verses 3 and 4 is about the chaos of the creation. Remember, flood waters are often signify chaos and disorder. And we see that here in verse 3, that floods have lifted up. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods have lifted up their pounding waves, greater than the roar of a huge torrent, the mighty breakers of the sea. Yahweh on high is majestic. So as chaotic and powerful as the floodwaters are, we see that God controls them all, that God controls all of these powerful forces in his majesty. His strength is majestic. And really that begins this section and ends the section. In verse number 1, talks about his majesty, talks about his strength in creation. Verses 3 and 4 talk about, again, his majesty and his strength and control over any and all chaotic forces. And in between there, in verse number 2, we see that this authority, this rule, is everlasting. He has always been majestic. He's always been full of strength. This has always been the case. So for God, his strength, his power, his authority, his rule, they are unparalleled. There is nothing and no one that can compare to the power, to the strength, the majesty, and the rule of Yahweh. But we'll finish with verse number 5. Not only is his strength unrivaled, but his character is unrivaled as well. Yahweh, your testimonies are completely reliable. They're trustworthy. When he speaks, Yahweh speaks the truth. Holiness, we see in the second half, adorns your house for all the days to come. Yes, his strength is impressive. Yes, his rule and his authority, his majesty, they have no comparison. But the same thing is true for his character as well. Both his testimony being reliable and his holiness being the very foundation of his house. What a great God it is that we serve. Whenever you think of what you want in a leader, let's take away from the king idea for a minute, because that's something that's foreign to us. Whenever we just think of a leader, what type of leader do we want? What type of characteristics do we want a leader to possess? Do we not want somebody who is strong? Do we not want somebody who is majestic in his or her character? Do we not want somebody who has the ability to wield authority and rule well? Do we not want somebody who has proper character, somebody who is honest and reliable and trustworthy? Do we not want somebody who is holy and righteous in their character? Of course we do. Sadly, we have a hard time finding that today, don't we, in our earthly rulers? But not so with our God. Our God is strong. Our God is authoritative. He is a great ruler. He is majestic in every way. He is reliable. He is trustworthy. He is holy, and he is righteous. And for all the number of earthly rulers that let us down, may we always find joy and confidence in knowing that Yahweh will not, that he will always rule well as our timeless King. If you have any questions or comments about Psalm 93, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I do appreciate you taking some time reading along with me on this Wednesday. Looking forward to being with everybody tonight for our Bible study at 7 o'clock and reading again together on Friday from Psalm 94. Take care and God bless.